Hello, Exeter, and today for our guest we have Sam Evans.
Car, so that, and then after that I bent over.
So, Sevan's Wormery, and you also work at the Chocolate House right across the street from us.
I do.
That we had just gone to not too long ago for Valentine's Day, which that was very exciting. It was fun to be over there and seeing the behind-the-scenes magic that you get to do every single day. And then on top of that, here in Exeter, you are a worm man.
I am. I have a wormery. So.
All right. So, of all things, why would you pick Exeter, and why would you pick a wormery?
Well, I used to work in the restaurant industry, and sadly, there's a lot of food waste in the industry. And 10 years ago, I was noticing how much was being thrown away, and they were actually throwing away 5-gallon buckets as well. So I asked them, hey, can I take these off your hands? And they said, yes, of course. We don't want to throw them into the trash, so we'd love to give you the buckets. And I made my first worm farm out of those, and I still have that worm farm to the day, and I just kind of snowballed effect from there. I started off with 200 worms, and now I'm about 40,000 worms in, and still growing the population, but...
Yeah. So have you always been a worm guy or biologist at all?
You know, I wasn't. I just saw the waste that they were producing, and I said, I really want to do something with all of this waste. And that's when I started looking up different things I could do with those buckets. Saw that someone created a worm farm with it, so I said, all right, I'll give it a shot. I bought 200 of them, and I kind of just started it from there, and kind of stuck with me ever since.
All right. Well, it's definitely unique. Just decided out of the blue, all right, I'm doing this. I'm going to go right ahead and I'm going to start a wormery. So is this a special kind of worm, or is this something anybody can do?
So there's only a few different types of worms that can be used as a composting worm. There's, you've probably heard of night crawlers. You can use night crawlers. The ones I primarily use are red wiggler worms. And so they're the most voracious of appetites. They really eat their food very fast, so they're kind of very helpful for composting. But a lot of worms aren't really the best fit for that, because there's about over 3,000 different species of worms.
All right.
And there's only like 5 or 6 that are great for composting. Mm-hmm. So I kind of just researched it. I saw that this was the worm I wanted, and I jumped on it.
All right. Sounds like it was love at first sight.
Kind of was. Took a little while to get used to getting in there and handling the worms, but after a while, it just kind of became second nature.
Wow. So these like bitey worms at all?
They do not bite. They actually don't have teeth at all. They suck on their food, so they really don't. They don't have any type of threat in that way to humans. Mm-hmm. But if you handle them too much, they can become slimy. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of knowing to not really mess with them too much and just kind of let them do their thing.
Oh, interesting. That's kind of cool. You just let them do their thing,
yeah.
Give them their food, and they go ahead and they make compost.
Yeah, I think of it as they're like teenagers. They don't want their parents coming in and bothering them too much. So it's I check on them once a week. I just see if everything's going well, and then I just let them do their thing for the rest of the week.
All right. And so you do this for just Exeter in particular?
Most of the surrounding areas, I'd be able to deliver to them and stuff like that. I started during the pandemic, so we're still freshly new. So, yeah, I just, when we all kind of shut down, I thought, you know what, this is the best time to kind of start something.
Interesting. All right, and so have you been living here?
Yes.
This entire time?
Yes, I've lived in Exeter for the past 6 years, but my first home was in Stratham. So I've lived in the area for most of my life.
In the area. So what drew you, or like what brought you to Exeter 6 years ago?
I ended up just moving with my girlfriend and kind of starting off life in that way. So,
All right.
just, ventures.
Just hopped over the pond?
Yeah, just kind of went over.
All right. Well, that was exciting. And you also work at the Chocolate House too.
I do.
And so 6 years ago, was that kind of a similar story? Like you just happened to be applying for a job, or?
Nope. I kind of took a step back from the restaurant industry during the pandemic. Things were kind of just very crazy for that industry. So I took a step back for a few months to kind of work on Sevan's Wormery, and then I just kind of landed upon it. Just kind of happened.
All right. And the restaurant industry, it seems like, has always kind of been a career choice for you.
I was in it for the past 12 years, yeah. So I was in that industry for quite a while.
Wow. 12 years of being in the restaurant, and 12 years plus of being in food, and more recently joining in on worms.
Yes.
All right. So before we started this interview, you kind of described them as they were like these little vampires that didn't.
Yes, they are very much so light sensitive. So if you put them in the light for too long, they can actually get paralysis and stop moving, and then eventually die because they need moisture. So by having the light on them, you're kind of drying them out, which is in terms killing them. So they really don't like sunlight very much. That's why you don't really find a lot of worms hanging out at the top of soil and stuff like that. Most of the time they're a few inches down or even further down if they're night crawlers.
Explains why when I'm like scraping out moss on the side of the patio, whenever I see some worms pop up, they just jump right on the ground right away.
Yeah.
Decides they're gonna hide on me. All right, so you have a little bit of some soil with you.
Yep, I have what they actually will eat their food, and then what they are actually pooping out is called worm castings.
Okay.
So I brought a little sample of what their end result is, and it's just like dirt. It smells like it. It feels like it. It's a very nice fertilizer. You can't over-fert with this with the worms castings. They won't burn your plants like normal fertilizers.
Okay.
So it's very beneficial for your soil.
Nice. Wow. Sounds like it's the lazy man's fertilizer. Okay. And so, do you know if it's possible to at least try and angle it for camera 3 here?
Yeah.
Let's see.
So I just have them in some bedding right now. They have newspaper shreds and some cardboard shreds. I also put in some avocado shells, which they like to eat avocados a lot. It's actually an aphrodisiac for them. So I try to give them avocados whenever I can get it we actually have a grocery store right down the road that gives us their old produce that they would be throwing away. So he kind of changes what we get every week. Well, let's see if I can get a little handful to show you. There's a good little amount right here. So this is...
That's it. Well, were you able to zoom in on that? All right.
So that's a little handful of worms. I started off with about 100 in here, and we got quite a little bit of them. You can see that there's small ones. We have a nice larger one right here.
Yeah.
You have some babies in the mix as well. And whenever you see babies, you know that your farm is doing well.
All right.
So that's a good little example of that. I'll tuck them back in because I know they don't like the light too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I just feed them once a week. I give them some bedding to make sure that the moisture levels aren't too high.
Yeah.
And I just kind of let them do their thing.
And so, I know that Exeter is pretty forward with doing like renewable energy and some more related things. How's the community been, or the restaurant community here been?
The community has been great. I have a couple restaurants that actually let me take their 5-gallon buckets off of them, so I have a constant supply of buckets and being able to do. I've had a lot of positive feedback from the community. I've gone all the way up to, of course I can't think of it. It was right by Colby Sawyer, the college. So we've gone about an hour and a half away to drop off worms to someone. We've gone as nearest to Exeter. It's been really an interesting journey.
All right, and so right in downtown, you're able to walk around and go pick up the compost and come back and feed it to these little guys.
Yep, I actually have a coffee shop in Newmarket because that was mostly where I worked in the industry. So I was able to find a couple businesses there that have a coffee shop that gives me coffee grounds as well. So I'll just go and I'll pick up a couple 5-gallon buckets of coffee grounds and I'll feed it to them. It's a very nice way of just having that full circle.
Wow, that's pretty neat. Do you have to explain it to people when you're showing it the first time?
Yeah,
They don't really.
A lot of people are very intrigued by the fact that it's just, I feed worms, I compost it, and then I turn it into what a lot of the industry call it black gold. So the castings are very, very nutrient rich, and they have a lot of biodiversity. So it's very helpful for your soil, and it helps boost boost the strength of your plants. So a lot of people really swear by it that it's really, really helpful to have.
Nice. That is really neat. That's also exciting. Like, the community is pretty open about that.
Yeah, I have a farm that we went to last year that was very open about it, and if he said to me plenty of times if he would dig in his soil when he's doing his tilling and stuff, if there are worms, that he knows that his land is doing well and it's very fertile because the worms help kind of do a lot for their soil.
Always exciting, always fun. Cool. Yeah, so is there anything else, living in Stratham, now living in Exeter, just only hopping across the pond, still being involved with food at all. Was there anything that particularly, drew you about being in the food service industry or being within the restaurant industry?
I liked the creativity of it. I also was big on trying to utilize certain foods that some people wouldn't utilize as much. Kind of jumps back on me not liking to waste as much. Mm-hmm. So I would try to take something that most people wouldn't use and try to do something creatively with it.
Okay, so could you give an example?
A lot of people don't use the potato skins when you peel off the potatoes, but you can actually put them in the oven and you can turn them into almost like little potato chips in a sense.
Okay.
So it's just kind of taking something that people would normally just throw right in the trash and turning it into something that you can still consume.
Very nice. Cool. And how did people react when you did something like take the skins and turn it into chips for people?
It takes a little bit of time for people to adjust, but I mean, it's that way whenever you try something new.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is cool. So, Sam, is there anything else you would like to share? Community, last words, anything like that before we go?
That they're really a very misunderstood breed. A lot of people think that worms are gross and disgusting, but they're really very essential for our ecosystem, and they're such a helpful thing to have around. A worm, when a happy worm, can actually eat almost half of its body weight in the optimal conditions. So if I had 30 pounds of worms, they can eat 15 pounds a day. So it's a very useful thing for trying to get rid of the food waste, because there's just so much going into landfills and creating a lot of problems in that way. So the more we can kind of do our small part, the better we can kind of keep our earth, really, kind of keep it healthy.
And you're seeing people responding in a positive way here for that.
Yeah, I've sold a couple farms to people who were able to give a farm to a friend and kind of branch out the community of just having worms and doing worm composting. It's a great way to compost all year round because in New England weather, we have such cold weather that sometimes it's hard to have an outdoor compost bin that is producing. But with the worms, you keep them in a nice little, they like crawl spaces and basements. So I keep mine in the basement and keeps a nice temperature all year round. And they just eat as much food as they can. Last year, we've gone through about 1,000 pounds of food collectively with the coffee grounds and going to that grocery store. And so that's 1,000 pounds that's not going to go into a landfill and create more carbon dioxide and problems in that way.
All right.
So,
great. Awesome. Thank you, Sam.
not a problem, anytime.
All right, Exeter, you heard it. If you're interested in being in the spotlight or recommending somebody, you can always contact us at extvg@exeternh.gov. Thank you, and have a great day.